Hi, I'm a Sand Recap and this is a movie to get. Superman, Red Sun, is a limited comic book series, published in 2003, known as an Elseworlds story. The series was written by Mark Millar and illustrated by Dave Johnson. It explores the alternate reality where Superman landed in the Soviet Union instead of the United States. It was nominated for an Eisner Award.
The people need to hear your voice.
The story of Red Sun Rising begins in the 1950s and establishes the setting and characters. Initially, the world is very similar to our own, but it starts to change rapidly as the Soviet Union unveils its latest weapon, Superman, which disrupts the Cold War and causes a competition to develop superpowered individuals. Superman is a recent addition to Stalin's inner circle. He is compassionate and fair, and is fully committed to the ideology of communism. Whenever possible, he works to prevent and respond to accidents in the Soviet Union. His counterpart in the United States is Lex Luthor, who is a highly intelligent scientist working for 𝐒𝐲𝐬𝐬 Labs. Lex is highly self-assured and dismissive of people he considers less intelligent than himself. He is married to Lois Lane. On the advice of his CIA contact, Agent Olsen, Lex begins to plot against Superman. In order to obtain the necessary genetic material for his initial plan, Luthor causes Sputnik 2 to crash in Metropolis. As he had predicted, Superman arrives in time to redirect its trajectory. During this process, he encounters Lois Lane and there is an instant attraction between them. But they do not act on it because Lois is already married. As a reference to the original story, the text notes that there is a popular fictional book that portrays Superman and Lois in a romantic relationship. The U.S. government retrieves the satellite and Luthor uses the samples from it to create a clone of Superman, known as Bizarro. Meanwhile, Superman meets Wonder Woman at a diplomatic gathering. She develops strong feelings for Superman, but he is compelled to leave when he sees Pyotr Rozlov, who is the chief of the NKVD and an illegitimate son of Stalin. Pyotr is upset with everything, particularly with Superman, whose arrival has changed the balance of power within the Soviet Union and caused Stalin to pay less attention to him, preventing him from advancing in his career, after being forced to kill a dissident couple. In front of their son for printing anti-Superman materials, Pyotr snaps and arranges for Stalin's poisoning. Pyotr feels guilty about his actions, but does not confess. Stalin dies from cyanide poisoning and Superman initially declines to take leadership of the Communist Party. Meanwhile, Luthor's clone is complete and fights Superman. The battle is inconclusive, but leads to an accidental nuclear missile launch targeting Great Britain. The clone, which is too similar to Superman, sacrifices itself to save millions of people. However, the incident causes significant damage and civilian casualties in London, which leads to a permanent breakdown in relations between the United States and United Kingdom. Luthor is horrified that the clone is more intelligent than him. After losing a chess match to it and kills his research staff before leaving 𝐒𝐲𝐬𝐬 Labs and starting his own company, Luthor Corp. With the goal of destroying Superman, Lois Lane is left alone and yearns for Superman. Despite the events, Superman tries to move on, but a chance encounter with his childhood. Red Sun Ascendant is set in an alternate 1978 and the world of the story has diverged significantly from our reality. There are no mentions of Soviet interventions in East Germany, 1953, Hungary, 1956, Czechoslovakia, 1968, or Afghanistan, which suggests that the Soviet Union's prosperity has extended to its satellite states and suppressed dissenting movements in those countries. John F. Kennedy is the President of the United States, having taken over after the tragic assassination of Richard Nixon, who had won the 1960 election but was killed in Dallas, Texas in 1963. Despite Luthor's repeated attempts, he has been unable to defeat Superman. Only the United States and Chile remain independent from the Soviet Union and both are on the brink of collapse. President Kennedy is forced to grant independence to Georgia and acknowledges that there are similar pressures for secession in Detroit and Texas, riots in California, and even a terrorist attack from communist sympathizers on the White House. In this alternate reality, Kennedy has married Marilyn Monroe and divorced Jacqueline Bouvier Kennedy. In contrast, the Soviet Union led by Superman has grown without war and has eliminated poverty, disease and similar issues, but this has come at the expense of individual liberties and Superman is becoming a figure similar to Big Brother. A brain surgery technique that turns dissidents into obedient drones, known as Superman robots, is being used. Wonder Woman and Superman have joined forces as partners in crime fighting and have formed a close friendship. They both use their abilities to help others, not just in their roles as ambassadors or leaders. Wonder Woman has romantic feelings for Superman, however he only sees her as a friend and is unaware of her feelings. Lois Luthor takes over as the head of the Daily Planet newspaper while her husband continues to work on his own projects. Luthor's plan to shrink Moscow is foiled by Brainiac, who accidentally shrinks Stalingrad instead. Superman steps in to stop the partnership between Brainiac and Luthor by retrieving the central processing unit of Brainiac and the shrunken city. He is unfortunately unable to return Stalingrad and its people to their original size, which causes him great remorse and is considered his one defeat. Luthor's second plan involves recruiting Batman, who was orphaned as a child by Piotr and is now an adult leading an anarchist group that views Superman's rule as oppressive. Batman's elusive nature and success in evading capture is a constant frustration for Superman. He joins forces with LexCorp and Piotr, who now holds a high position in the KGB and is envious of Superman, in a plan to overthrow Superman's rule. They capture Wonder Woman and use her as a lure to weaken Superman by exposing him to rays that mimic the light of his home planet. The plan is successful in draining Superman's powers, but Wonder Woman manages to rescue him, but not without sustaining serious injuries and turning her hair white. Batman ultimately chooses to take his own life instead of being captured and reveals Piotr's involvement in the plot. Piotr is then transformed into a Superman robot. Luthor unveils his third plan, in which he obtains a mysterious Green Lantern from an alien ship that had crashed in Roswell, New Mexico. Batman has become a symbol for his cause. Brainiac is reprogrammed to assist Superman, and the building of a version of the Fortress of Solitude, which is located in Siberia and called the Winter Palace, is set to begin. This sets the stage for the final act of the story. The setting of Red Sun is in the year 2001, where the global Soviet Union comprises all nations except for Chile and the divided remnants of the United States of America, which underwent a devastating civil war in 1986, resulting in 16 states seceding from the Union. In the Soviet-controlled nations, there is no crime, poverty, unemployment, or freedom of choice. The Superman robot program is used as a common punishment for dissent. Superman is focused on convincing the US to join the Soviet Union, and refuses Brainiac's plans to invade the US. His one failure is Stalingrad, which is plagued by a green microorganism that looks like a sheep lice. Luthor runs for and becomes the President of the United States with Jimmy Olsen as his vice president. He succeeds President Friedman, who failed to handle food shortages and deployed tanks on New York's First Avenue. It is unclear if this refers to the economist Milton Friedman. Using his scientific knowledge, vast financial resources and authoritarian powers, he restores prosperity to his country, reuniting the secession states. However, he continues to be antisocial, and this is only a part of his bigger scheme to provoke Superman into invading America so that he can be defeated. As Lois Luthor and Lucy Lane Olson discuss in the abandoned offices of the Daily Planet in Metropolis, Luthor confronts Superman in the Siberian Winter Palace. In a seemingly uneventful moment, Brainiac drags Luthor deep into the fortress to be transformed into another Superman robot. Superman realizes that he is forced to act and prepares to attack. Superman attacks the eastern coast of the United States, defeating the Green Lantern Marine Corps led by Colonel Hal Jordan and consisting of Privates Scott, Stewart, Rayner, and Gardner. He also defeats the Amazon forces commanded by a deeply disappointed Wonder Woman, as well as a group of villains that Luthor has assembled over time. Brainiac's spaceship destroys the U.S. Pacific Fleet, and the two powerful beings meet at the White House, where Lois Luthor holds the final weapon, a note written by Lex that causes Superman to lose his determination. The note reads, "Why don't you just put the whole world in a bottle, Superman?" Superman orders Brainiac to end the invasion, but the robot reveals that he was not fully reprogrammed as believed, attacking Superman with green radiation that is similar to green kryptonite, and boasting that he will one day control the entire universe. Luthor, who had avoided the surgery during the invasion, shut Brainiac down. Superman then destroys the robot. This causes a failsafe self-destruct sequence, and as the gravitational singularities powering Brainiac's ship threaten to explode, Superman flies it into outer space where it explodes. The Earth is saved, but it is believed that Superman was caught in the explosion, which had a kill radius of 15 million miles. The story concludes with the Soviet Union falling into chaos and being transformed by the Batman. Lex Luthor incorporates many of Superman's ideas into a new philosophy called Luthorism and creates a global United States. This becomes a turning point for humanity as it enters an era of unprecedented peace and stability. A beneficent world government is established and maintained, and Luthor leads a series of scientific advancements, including the cure of all diseases and colonization of the solar system. Lex Luthor lives for over 2,000 years. At his funeral, it is revealed that Superman survived the explosion and appears to be immortal, but this is unknown to Lois, who outlived her husband. Retired from public view, the story goes on to describe Luthor's descendants, with Jor-El being the last one and whose intellect exceeded that of even his beloved ancestor billions of years in the future. It is revealed that Earth is being destroyed by tidal forces from its sun. Jor-El and Lara send their baby son back in time in a rocket. The last panels of the comic book show the landing of Kal-El's time machine in a Ukrainian collective farm in 1938, creating a predestination paradox.